January 2025, a new year, a familiar dread. Donald Trump, back in the Oval Office, wasted no time. His administration swiftly reinstated the hardline immigration policies that had sown chaos and fear during his first tenure. The message was clear: America's doors were slamming shut. One of the most controversial policies was the expansion of third-country agreements. These agreements, already in place with countries like Guatemala and Panama, allowed the U.S. to deport migrants seeking asylum to these nations while they awaited their court hearings in the United States. The catch? These hearings were often delayed for years, leaving asylum seekers stranded in countries ill-equipped to handle them. The Trump administration claimed these measures were necessary to curb illegal immigration and protect national security. But critics argued they were a blatant attempt to dismantle the asylum system and punish vulnerable populations fleeing violence and persecution. For many migrants, the journey north is fraught with peril. They risk life and limb, often fleeing unimaginable horrors in their home countries. But instead of finding refuge at the U.S. border, they are met with detention, uncertainty, and despair. Take the case of Maria, a young mother from Honduras who fled her village after her husband was murdered by a local gang. She traveled for weeks with her 2 young children, only to be apprehended at the U.S. border and sent to a detention center in Guatemala. Maria's story is not unique. In these overcrowded and often unsanitary facilities, hope dwindles with each passing day. The psychological toll is immense. Many migrants reported feeling trapped and forgotten, their dreams of a better life shattered. They described inadequate medical care, limited access to legal counsel, and constant fear of being deported back to the dangers they had risked everything to escape. The legal quagmire surrounding these third-country agreements is complex and often unforgiving. Human rights groups argue that these agreements violate international law as they shift the responsibility of asylum seekers from developed nations like the U.S. to countries with far fewer resources. Costa Rica, a country often lauded for its commitment to human rights, found itself in a particularly precarious position. As a signatory to international conventions on refugees, Costa Rica faced mounting pressure to provide adequate protection to the influx of asylum seekers being deported from the U.S. The situation sparked a heated debate within the country, pitting those who supported the government's cooperation with the U.S. against those who condemned it as a betrayal of Costa Rica's humanitarian values. The legal challenges mounted, with lawyers and activists filing lawsuits arguing that the detention of asylum seekers without due process was unconstitutional. The courts were inundated with cases, each one representing a human life hanging in the balance. The plight of migrants trapped in this web of detention and despair is a stark reminder of the human cost of these policies. The situation has drawn condemnation from international organizations, with the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, UNHCR, urging the U.S. to reconsider its approach. But the Trump administration remained unmoved, arguing that its policies were necessary to deter illegal immigration and protect American jobs. The administration's stance has been met with outrage from human rights advocates who accuse the U.S. of abdicating its responsibility to protect vulnerable populations. The crisis at the border is not just an American problem, it is a global issue that demands a global solution. The world is watching, and history will judge how we respond. Will we turn our backs on those in need, or will we rise to the challenge and reaffirm our commitment to human rights and dignity for all? The answer, it seems, remains as elusive as the promise of a safe haven for those fleeing for their lives.